You can solve the Superman problem. I know that because I just finished witnessing it with my own two eyes. This movie, that I actually like, does not solve the Superman problem. In fact, it leans so hard into the Superman problem that it's almost straight up admitting it doesn't know how. But that's probably because this movie isn't a Superman movie, it's a reaction starring Superman. James Gunn didn't want the job he has now as the head of DC's new movie universe. He's been very honest about that. DC's movie universe had imploded with its final 3 films failing catastrophically at the box office. But he took the job for many reasons. One was that he would get to make what he now calls the hardest movie he's ever had to make. A movie with a main character that at one point over the last 2 decades was almost this guy, and famously, this guy. All considered for Superman at one point. But Superman wasn't just a movie. It was a complete reset for DC and Warner. So it became...
Come on.
Before we can even get to what's referred to as the Superman problem, here's where the reaction starts. Moment 1. This is what's called starting in media res, a fancy Latin phrase that just means that this movie starts in the middle of its story, or in this case, its character's narrative. Why? Well, because James Gunn and DC aren't creating their new universe on its own. They're doing it in the context of the last one. Rebooting Superman and his origin makes less sense when there's already exposure to a Superman who was last in a movie in 2022. The same lesson Sony and Marvel learned with Spider-Man. Gunn viewed the build-up to superhero team-ups as burdensome, so he swung so far in the other direction that it solved one problem but created a brand new one. This movie drops you into a world that already contains multiple heroes.
How do you even know Superman anyway?
I just do.
Complex politics, familiar threats, and as a result, it feels very alive. It makes you feel like you're a part of it already. And that's a great change. It gives the movie a steady, immediate pace. But it also makes the movie feel a little crowded, which is why several critics called the plot things like overstuffed. The DCEU's mistake was sprinting into universe building. The reaction here is a pre-built universe you're thrown into with too many elements at play. Sure, maybe comic readers know who this guy is, but as the average moviegoer, and he's a great example of the next reaction. What you're looking at here is the biggest influence for the Superman movie. It's a comic run titled All-Star Superman. It's baked into its DNA, and it's going to come back into play with that Superman problem in a minute. But I mention it now because it is a part of this movie's reaction foundation. It also happens to be my favorite Superman comic run. This movie makes it abundantly clear that Gunn and his team believed that the DCEU's biggest problem, without a doubt, was its tone and its tonal inconsistency. That the world, the visuals, and characters were just too dark. So this movie takes from All-Star Superman. It is beautiful, it is colorful, it is fun in how it presents itself. It's a comic book, but it's the tone that it reacted to most specifically. The DCEU treated Superman as a problem humanity must solve.
We act by the consent of the governed, sir.
The reboot wants to treat him as an answer humanity needs. I think this is great. And by painting Superman as a potential pariah to society in the context of this movie's tone, Gunn actually managed to make hopefulness and the purity of Superman kind of counterculture. He managed to make a bright, hopeful character close to an anti-hero. That's great writing. But again, reacting. This is where you feel the MCU influence. Humor correction. Sincere moment, here comes Crypto to make it comedic, like Rocket. Serious deconstruction of our character, call him super feces.
Come on, Lois, you know that one specifically irritates me.
This is on the record, Clark.
Yes, really. Giant fight to save the world, have to make time for the quips, just like Peter Quill. Better yet, let's just get a gang of comedic relief quipsters together, characters who aren't given enough time to really matter in the first place. In reacting to the Snyder tone, the film drifts into the MCU's rhythms, which works sometimes for the movie and really doesn't others. Which is a sentence that finally brings us right into the Superman problem. The Superman problem refers to a writing issue coined after Superman. How do you write characters with no moral or physical weaknesses? And too many Superman stories solve this problem by making the same decision this movie does. Grant Morrison is the writer of All-Star Superman. He had 2 problems with this movie, a movie he otherwise loved. The first one, to quote him, "In order to make him seem more relatable, James Gunn had Superman getting beaten up an awful lot. I want to see him stop getting beaten up and fight back. So, 3 reactions come into play here, and they all apply to the Superman problem. In order to make the Man of Steel more human, to react to this, from the opening moments of the film until the credits, Superman is just getting pummeled by the world, by Lex, by villains, with the point being that he still stays a beacon of hope through it all, but he is really beaten up. The problem is, this rubs against the positive visual tone and energy of the movie a little too frequently. But again, they wanted to do the opposite of this. So then the movie reacts again. The DCEU was too destructive. Superman created too much chaos. This movie solves this problem the right way, the right kind of reaction here, and perfectly. Clark spends this entire fight, for instance, doing nothing but protecting the city. This scene isn't just a reaction, it is literally making a point. He even wants to protect his enemy. He does everything he does here to prevent damage to the world around him. A perfect reaction to the DCEU. But then, the Superman problem itself. Who's a worthy opponent to Superman? Well, here, it's not really our villain in the end, despite so much setup. It's Superman, obviously. This is a classic trap, and one the studio probably should have known better than to lean into. When you have no idea what to do with Superman, so you put him against himself, you have next to nowhere to go after but down. It gives the movie a lazier conclusion than the rest of it deserved, and really just isn't that interesting, even considering the thematic realities of Superman fighting himself here. That can be shown without needing to do this. The weirdest part is the Superman problem can be solved. All-Star Superman, this movie's biggest inspiration, does it as just one example. In it, Lex has a genuinely good plan. He dupes Superman into flying into a star. It overwhelms his molecular structure, and Superman begins to cellularly deteriorate. Superman is dying. And the story is about what happens when Superman may not be Superman anymore, may not even be around. Instead, the movie tries to solve the invincible Superman problem by making him morally fragile. Grant Morrison's second problem with the movie, as he puts it, is that this makes Superman's motivations wish fulfillment BS. Instead of choosing to do good himself, this storytelling device with his parents makes it all fantasy. He's the chosen one, Luke Skywalker. The path was set before him, but this narrative choice means you end up solving the Superman problem with Superman in the end.
Superman.
Miss Lane.
In the end, Warner and DC took a risk that may not end up paying off for the genre, refusing to take a break. Marvel probably needed one after Endgame, and the DCEU reset before people even realized it was ending. There was no space for Superman to incubate on its own merits, no space for it to breathe fresh air, for Clark to spend some time back on the farm. So it became Man of Reaction. It wasn't far enough removed from the DCEU to even decide what it should be on its own. It just knew what it couldn't be. So instead of rebooting, it reacted. It listened to criticism and responded directly to it instead of finding its own footing on its own. It let reaction guide it. Ironically, the same problem Superman himself struggles with in this movie. And maybe that was part of the point. You can even see this in the clear parallels to social cancel realities throughout the film as well. By forcing this movie out so fast, it put it in a very difficult position, as both Marvel and DC seem obsessed with doing, which maybe makes it a miracle that despite being the result of reaction, it's still quite good. It is fun, it is beautiful, it is a good comic book put to screen, but it's also a little inconsistent and flawed. And most of these flaws could have been avoided if it had been given a chance to make up its own mind, if it had been given the time to cut out the noise. Just like Superman here. But Superman ends with a message of hope. And I really believe that maybe at the end of all this, that's what this movie is. Flaws and all, reaction and all, it's hope. Because if, and it is a big if, it's only going to get better from here, this might turn out to be an all-star comeback story for DC movies. But at some point, you have to stop reacting and take a leap.
Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound, Superman!
That is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this one, press that like button down below. And if you haven't yet done so, press subscribe. That way you don't miss anything that comes to the channel. And also hit that little notification bell. It just makes sure you actually get notified when a video comes out. And this has been